Idaho REIN since the very beginning, and brought a team, I think, when we had that launch event back in 2023. And he has just really been consistent with his business ever since. And part of why I wanted Brian to share tonight is because he's an example of someone that has taken his life from a W-2 income, which he'll talk about that, and brought it to a full-fledged business using real estate investment as the vehicle. So I think it's really interesting, really timely with what people are doing today in today's market. And Ryan's coming to us tonight from London, England. He was just telling his daughter, we both have daughters named Charlie, and Charlie has a British accent, so they can say, Charlie with my finger, right? That is so cool. So we're just excited to hear, Ryan, just show me your slideshow, share from the heart. I want it to feel like we're just talking in a living room tonight, right? This is not a pitch, we're not gurus, we're just out here teaching each other what our stories are in real estate investing. So he's going to answer some questions afterwards, but without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Brian Weimer with Offer Now Idaho.
Just real quick, let's give it up for Jonna. Way to go, Jonna. This is amazing. What a cool new building, right? This is pretty amazing. So today, I want to share with you how to engineer life on your terms and engineer a true life of freedom for yourself. I'm going to go really fast through my story. I have to end tactical because I'm an engineer. So yeah, it's going to get a little bit into the data, all the nitty gritty, but I do want to make sure I leave time for Q&A at the end to address people's personal questions. I don't have anything to sell you whatsoever. I'm just going to share my experience, my evolution, most importantly, my failures and what I've learned from them, and hope you guys can take away some actionable tips here. 40 plus rental doors so far. Owner and CEO of Offer Now Idaho, my lovely wife Julia and daughter Charlie. She just turned 3. She does say cheerio, wota, you know, all the British accent stuff. I don't know how long that's going to last. That should be interesting if we move. So, bachelor's in mechanical engineering. So I was totally, you know, data technical driven until I got into real estate, and I'll talk about the transition there. We are now a team of 20. So we're all direct to seller marketing. We've done over 500 off-market transactions in the last 5 years in the state of Idaho. I do have to embarrass Tori Runyon in the back. She's our operations manager. She's here from my team, Tori. She's the genius behind a lot of this, so feel free to pick her brain after we're done here. And yeah, we're coming up on our 3rd year living in London. So fun fact about me, I've never actually lived in Boise, which is crazy. In fact, last trip, I saw 8 of my properties that I had never even seen before, that I've owned for like 2 or 3 years. And that probably breaks a lot of people's brain and how that's possible. But my gives this evening, we're gonna meet tomorrow, 4:30 at one of our flips here, if you guys wanna take a picture of this. This is in the Lake Crest Way in Eagle subdivision, one of our cooler flips. It's a big one. And then we're gonna go right into a meetup at Western Collective Brewery. My whole team is going to be there, so if you guys have specific questions, what's working, what's not in the off-market space, you can pick all their brains at that event. I won't be speaking or anything, it'll just be pure networking, so you can get more questions there. My only ask, take a picture of me, share on the Idaho Real Estate Investor page. A lot of us in this room, right, whether you're just starting out or you've been doing real estate for a while, we have to remember what it was like for that person that's never done a deal before. And a lot of that is sharing the knowledge so people gain the confidence to take action and change their circumstances. I cannot emphasize the importance of that. As an engineer, I struggled with analysis paralysis for a very long time. One of my favorite quotes, the biggest risk to your future isn't your competition. It's the distractions you insist on keeping in your life rather than doing things you know you should be doing, but aren't. Isn't that the truth? People delay doing things they don't like longer than it takes to actually do them. We are unconfrontational by nature, right? We like to stick our head in the sand and pretend everything's okay instead of face that scary thing. And what this really boils down to for a lot of people is a deep-rooted fear, right? It's a fear of not measuring up to yourself or what you think about yourself. Maybe it's a fear of what others think about you. Maybe it's just a general fear of failure that you have to get over. But that's why we behave in this way. So understanding that about humans and how we act, psychology behind that arms us on how we can create that life that we want. So I'm gonna go really fast through my beginning. Grew up in a small town in Colorado, played football in college, mechanical engineer. My first job out of school, I was living the dream, man. I was in downtown Denver. I was making $65,000 as a 22-year-old. And I was like, this is amazing, I'm rich, right? This is the best life ever. The bottom left picture is me. I worked for an oil and gas company there with my hard hat. Did that for a year until I was laid off. What? I just went to school for 5 years getting this degree. I grew up in a W-2 family, right? My dad was an engineer, my mom worked for the federal government. Like, that was the way that you make a life for yourself. Nobody ever talked about getting fired or laid off. Are you kidding me? So this happens to me, and the way they did it too is totally unexpected. The price of oil went from $100 a barrel down to 40 in a matter of months. And I was just one of the new hires that got caught up in that. Now, what they don't tell you is if you sign up with their personal phone plan, they also, when you're getting escorted out of the building, take your phone and your number away from you. So I'm 23 years old, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I don't even have a phone? Like, I literally walked from my office to the Verizon store to go get a phone. Like, I didn't have anything. Wow, what a crazy moment. So I did what every young male especially does that is trying to reinvent and rediscover themselves. I moved to San Diego cold turkey without a job, and I couch surfed for 4 months until I could find another job. So that's me and my mom packing up our Xterra there and going to San Diego, and I landed a sweet gig. It made a lot of sense what happened to me when I landed this new job, because it was everything that I wanted, and I was so thankful then for what happened to me. And that's gonna be a common theme as we go through some of these other failures. But I joined with a semiconductor company that does laser lithography systems and designs semiconductor chips. So we did a lot of work with Intel, Samsung. I traveled 70% of the time. So I would go to Taiwan on a moment's notice. They'd say, hey, Ryan, we need you on a flight tomorrow to go to Taiwan for 8 weeks and fix this laser system. And I was like, great, I'm young and single and I have nowhere to be, so yes, send me there, please. And so I went all over the world. It was the coolest job ever. I did that for 3 years, and I was sacrificing a lot to do that, right? So it was really fun at first, and then it started wearing off a little bit, right? Because when you're getting called and you got to go places for extended periods of time, you don't really have a life outside of work. So yeah, Dwight was popping my balloon there because I was feeling some pain. I was up for promotion in the spring of 2019, and I didn't get the position, not because I didn't deserve it, but because we were owned by a Dutch company, and my manager literally pulled me in a room and said, hey Ryan, we know that you're the best qualified for the job, but because we're a satellite office, we need to hire somebody Dutch that connects better with the mothership so we can be on the map, right? So we can better position ourselves for, budget and things like that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you weren't supposed to tell me that, but okay. So another moment, right, where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not getting a promotion because of my nationality. Something feels wrong here. Fast forward to that Thanksgiving, I'm in Taiwan. I had planned to come home, and they said, sorry, you can't come home until the project's done. I said, what? I've already been here like 6 weeks, extended twice. And they said, I don't think you understand. If you come home, you don't have a job anymore. So it's like literally trapped in Taiwan, like over Thanksgiving, just stuck there until whenever the project finished. Could be tomorrow, could be like months from now, right? So that was the second moment where I was really like, I am not in control here. Like, this is not what I heard about when they said go to school, get a job, get a really high wage, but be a prisoner, right? So they had taken away my upside because I wasn't getting promoted, but then I was like answering to everybody else, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. What am I doing here? I'm sure everybody in this room has had at least one moment like this in their life where they're like, yeah, this doesn't add up. And so this brought me into investing into real estate. Why Boise? I was living in San Diego, so I couldn't afford anything there, even on an engineer's salary. But my longtime roommate, Corey, now COO of Offer Now Idaho, he couldn't be here today. But we bought a single family home 50-50 that we still own to this day in Idaho, in Boise there. He was born and raised in Boise. And Boise was checking all the boxes, still is, right? Job growth, wage growth, people moving here, all the great things that Idaho has to offer. And so we took that plunge. Though it was really pain that caused me to take action. And so we all in this room have some element of pain that we're either dealing with currently, and I know it's all relative, right? Life problems, first world problems. But if you have pain, that is the most powerful motivator that you can possibly have. Everybody always talks about, oh, start with your why, that is bullshit, sorry. You have to have pain, especially if you have golden handcuffs, like you have to have pain to be able to change your circumstances and take action. So if you have that, use it. It's so valuable. You're not gonna have that in some moments of your life. It's a total reframe on taking a negative circumstance and turning it into a positive and taking massive action. And so this is exactly what that feels like. Quote from Tim Cook at Apple, CEO. There's a saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. At Apple, I learned that is total crock. You'll work harder than you ever thought possible, but the tools will feel light in your hands. And so when I get asked, you were an engineer, you were an introvert, how in the world did you start cold calling strangers and sellers on the phone? This is exactly why. Because I had enough pain, and then I was doing something for myself. I didn't care about rejection at all because I was doing something for me. And so that's when it became 450 no's. It took me not 450 dials, 450 talking to the correct property owner on their address, right? I was looking at Zillow for rents and Craigslist, and I was just calling them up and say, hey, I know your house is listed for rent, but would you consider selling it? 450 of those to get my first contract. And this is what got me through, right? These writing down, I'll be a millionaire by age 30. You can write a lot of letters, yellow letters, on a 13-hour flight to Taiwan. The people next to me probably thought I was absolutely insane. And then I used to write yellow letters while I was on my triple dialer cold calling sellers. But I was working this engineering job, and on nights, weekends, literally any free time that I had, I was cold calling sellers. Which brought me to my first off-market deal, right? 450 no's. That 451st one was a yes. This little dinky, skinny lot in the north end that I'm sure everybody else looked at. It was on the tax delinquent list. She was behind on taxes. Everybody else looked at it and were like, what in the world could you even do with that little piece? You can't put anything on that, right? I had no idea what I was doing. I said, well, why don't I give it a shot? I'll give her a call. I asked her, hey, if we could do, I was totally guessing, what price do you want for this? They said $75,000. I called up all the neighbors thinking that, hey, they might have a use for this little piece. I said, I'm in the process of potentially buying this property. What would you pay for this? One of them said $86,000. Boom, I made the difference. I contracted it at $75,000, I wholesaled it to the neighbor, and that changed my brain chemistry forever. Up until then, W-2 was the only way I knew how to make money that was possible, right? This moment I'll never forget. I was in the office and I looked at my phone and a wire came in for $11,000. I was like, oh my gosh, it would take me like multiple months to earn that. And then I was completely hooked, right? It became a full-fledged addiction. Every free moment that I had, I was contacting sellers. And this is what kept me going through a lot of this, right? I think what stops a lot of people, they want every homeowner that they talk to be a deal, and they drastically underestimate the volume that it takes to actually find somebody with a problem that you can solve. Because the reality is 95% of people should list it with a realtor, should sell for sale by owner, all these traditional ways, right? But the 5% of the people that have problems are the ones that we're looking for to help. And so these messages, one out of every 20 or 30 people I would get that are going through a rough time, and no, I wouldn't get the contract, but I'd be able to help them, and I would get texts like this that really help fill up my fulfillment and deal with all that rejection. And so all of these little micro wins along the way help make it worth it. And having clarity too. It took us about a year and a half only to get 30 doors, because this was right around COVID. So that was my opportunity. I felt like it was a message from the universe. My travel was cut, and I was just working at home as an engineer to really turbocharge this thing. And so that's when I went balls to the wall, and I was like, there's nothing stopping me here. This is a total gift. I have all this extra time. What are you gonna do with it, Ryan? How are you gonna make it worth it? And so I took that opportunity, and that was where Offer Now Idaho was born. Direct to seller, we did 8 wholesale deals in 1 month, and that was the month that I quit my job. That picture in the bottom in the sunset was the day that I quit my job, and it was the coolest feeling ever, but at the same time, I didn't need to just replace my income as an engineer. I had to far exceed it, because I was still so fear-based in my thinking, such a scarcity mindset, afraid to lose that stable income, right? And I wasn't really sure if I should bet on myself. So then we did the next most rational thing, which is we had our first child and then packed up our life into 11 suitcases and moved to London. That's what everybody does with a newborn, right? And yeah, this picture on the right, I made a joke with my wife that those are her 10 suitcases and my one there on the left. But yeah, it was all sunshine and rainbows, right? Until it wasn't. So 3 months moving to London, I was working on we had a 12-unit development deal, and I had a contractor that didn't build any of it to fire code. So I'll never forget where I was. I was in Latvia, in Riga. It's an amazing place if anybody ever wants to go there. But I was in a room, and I get a call from City of Boise from one of the inspectors, and he's like, hey, there's a problem here. Like, you're getting red tagged. None of this stuff is built to fire code. You got all the wrong drywall. You got all the wrong doors. You got all the wrong insulation. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, sorry, you got to rip all this out and redo it all. So my contractor fled the state, and it caused me over $1 million in damages. The lawsuit's still ongoing, but I don't think I'll get any of it back because he's insolvent. But ultimately, it's my fault. If you want to learn more about that in detail, you can check out this interview that I did with Steve Trang, which is pretty raw. It's not an easy thing to lose that much money, especially when you don't have $1 million in cash to lose. But time for another Rocky cutscene, right? I talked about doing the yellow letters and working for myself. If you haven't seen Rocky, there's a scene where he's getting ready for the fight and he's cutting weight, right? And he's working out really hard and he's on a diet, and that lasts like 30 seconds of the movie, and then he's like, hitting people and winning all these fights. Well, in real life, the Rocky cutscene can last 5 years, not 30 seconds. So this was my opportunity to kind of reinvent myself and see how we deal with that. And so what happened as a result, we innovated, we started doing a lot more creative finance deals, and we came up with this cool strategy called Weimer Method. So just in the last year, we've gotten over $2 million in cash at 0% interest in seller finance notes using Weimer Method. We also had our biggest deal in company history last year, a 6 townhome project. The guy had lost a huge amount of money in a cryptocurrency scam and needed liquidity really fast. So we came in, we made about $400K on that deal. We got an additional $500,000 at 0% interest, cash. Not a note, literally like in our bank account. So this is something that never would have happened if I hadn't lost that amount of money. Because remember, I didn't have $1 million to lose in cash. So I was like, how the hell am I gonna make up this delta when these things finally sell? Because I had to bring cash in to finish the whole rest of the thing. I had to bring cash in to close to get out of that deal. And so I really had to look at what can I do to go on offense here? I can't do anything about that. What can I do to go on offense? So this never would have happened, never would have been born if that hadn't happened to me. Real quick, what is Weimer Method? It's a substitution of collateral for your seller's note. So let's say we're negotiating payments over time on a property. We will secure that seller's note against one of our multifamily properties. Instead, in second position, a property with equity, and then we'll sell that subject property. So we'll get all that cash, but we'll keep the payments over time, and now they're secured against a different property. So we'll use that strategy quite often. If you want to learn more about that, here's a video. So more on that, you can talk to me about that later, because the first time I heard about this and we were trying it, it went completely over my head, so that's okay. But let's fast forward to now. So now we're gonna go into the tactical and things that can help everybody in this room. The reason why we were able to sign 126 off-market contracts last year and are on pace to totally shatter that this year is because of the number of people that we helped. So we're so serious about this and our core values, it's literally at the top of our metrics on our Salesforce dashboard is the number of people helped. That doesn't mean number of contracts that we got. That means we referred them to an agent because they weren't the right fit. We helped them keep their home in foreclosure because they didn't want to sell. They wanted to do a loan modification, and we hold their hand and walk them through that. We don't charge them anything. This is how we stand out versus all the other cash lowball investors that send out hundreds of offers and just piss people off in the process. It really does. The magic does start with thinking long and playing this long game of helping others. So these are some of our accomplishments in the last year. Brand is not something I ever really thought about until this last year, but now that it's attracting more A players onto our team, it's becoming a huge motivator and driver for a lot of our success, because it builds trust. We're in a world now with unlimited options, and with AI, that's only gonna explode, right? So how is somebody gonna tell the difference between you and a scammer, or you and all the other options they have? You have to have social credibility and social trust. This is not something that is easy to build. It takes a really, really long time, so don't get frustrated. This is about playing the long game, okay? So Google reviews are a big thing that we focused on, especially in the last year. But the one thing about being a business owner and why I went so far with this entrepreneur path is about impact. Like, financial freedom's cool, living where you want is cool, living in London is great, but impact is something I never really knew the power of until I was a business owner. So the first virtual assistant we ever hired, this is his mother. He was able to buy her a washing machine for the first time in the Philippines. I mean, talk about just something that we all take for granted, right? That's really changing somebody's life. Also, our employee discounted home buyer program that I'll play here, that's available for all of our employees.
There's certain metrics. You can buy a property that we have on board. Why it's so special for me is a couple years back, I used to be able to fix it. I basically lost everything. And I never believed my home insurance was possible for me. Man, it was just a gut punch. And to a year and a half, 2 years later, I had that completely turned around. And I know that, I know it's painful, but I'm extremely grateful because now this gives hope. And this is just a stepping stone to many more.
What a cool thing, being able to impact lives and change people's family tree forever. We have huge, audacious goals at Offer Now Idaho. We want to be a $10 million a year top-line revenue company by the end of 2027. We grew 72% last year, so we are on target to do that, but we need a lot of A players. So we're looking for people to join the team that want to be a part of that mission and help a lot of people. My team gets annoyed with how much I talk about this graph, but it's worth etching into your brain. This is what the transition curve of change and growth looks like, okay? When you start something new, it's the honeymoon phase, it's all exciting. Yes, I'm gonna go do 1 million off-market deals and change my life and financial freedom, whoopee, right? Oh crap, it's not as easy as I saw on social media and that everybody said it was gonna be, right? You have informed pessimism. A lot of people, when you're learning a new skill, they fight this element of failure when they don't understand that failure is necessary to build a new skill set. If you've never hired somebody before, you're going to suck at hiring. Not for a little while, for years. It's gonna take up a lot of time, energy, resources, and money, right? Problem is, when most people get to this crisis of meeting, these failures, they go and they blame the thing and they go and jump into something new, and then they just repeat the cycle over and over again. They crash and burn. They don't go through that low point. They don't push through to develop that new skill and get to the other side, which is, okay, now I know what I'm up against. Now I know what I'm facing, and now I'm informed and I'm building the skills required to go get it. And then you can level up from there. But it does require this valley of despair. I get asked this all the time, like, why in the world would somebody ever sell a property at a discount? It doesn't make sense. In fact, when I first heard about wholesaling, I thought it was a lie. I thought it was illegal. The analogy to use, why does CarMax exist? When my wife and I moved to London, turns out the steering wheel's on the wrong side, right? Because they drive on the other side. So you can't ship cars over there, nor do you want to. So I went on Kelley Blue Book and I saw how much my car was worth, right? And I could have posted on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and gotten probably close to that. But you know what I did? Life was busy. I was a new father. We were packing up our life and moving somewhere else. And I said, you know what? I'm going to CarMax, and I sold it for like $5,000 less than Kelley Blue Book. I traded equity for ease and convenience. And the same exact concept applies to properties. There's just sometimes a lot more drama, emotions, logistics, where are people moving to that we have to unpack and help people through. Who all in this room have heard these objections? Yeah, right? Everybody, all the time. Too saturated, not enough deals, I'm too late, I've missed the upside, it's too competitive, I don't have any money. Well, now we actually have the data to prove that that is complete horseshit, okay? So a year and a half ago, we upgraded our CRM to Salesforce. So we've been generating off-market leads from homeowners for about 5 years. And for us, a lead is anybody that raises their hand or fills out a web form or anything and says, yes, I'm interested in selling a property. We have almost 12,000 of those in our database now. 2,500 of those, 21% of our database is still uncontacted. Meaning whenever they reached out to us initially or they answered the first time on a cold call, we have not been able to reconnect with them at all. The reason I'm sharing this is every year I'm like, well, with an MSA the size of Boise, I think around 100 deals a year, we'll probably hit a ceiling and we'll have to take on another market. Then the next year, I'm like, well, you know, maybe 200 deals a year. Well, recently, we just added an AI feature called Property Sales AI, and this is Tori's baby, so I'm stealing a little of your thunder. But ask her about this. This tells us how much we suck, basically, how many deals we've lost that are in our database. And so you can look at it and say, wow, this is unbelievably awful. How did we lose that many deals? Or you can look at it and say, holy crap, there's so much opportunity out there. So, yeah, I know. Just in the last 90 days, not the last year, not all time, just in the last 90 days, 171 people in our database sold to somebody else just in the last 90 days, okay? And that's just the people in our database. That's not everybody in the valley. That's not everybody in the state, right? At an average $30,000 deal size, which is right around what we're hovering right now, that's over $5 million in lost revenue. Just in this small time window. I don't even want to know what it's like all time. I might have an aneurysm. Okay. So, of course, are we going to get all those? No, we're not. But what if we get 10% of that? Because a lot of these people, some of these people are going to be, you know, selling retail with a realtor, or some of these people are going to be new, uncontacted. 24 of those, 20 foreclosures. Do you think if we did a little bit more follow-up, if we maybe had a different text cadence, email cadence, did some door knocking, put in the extra effort, that we could land a couple of those? Absolutely. And these are just the people that we know about. Again, this is not everybody. People we met with, ooh, that stings way worse than just leads, right? These are homeowners we actually met with. We went to the property, we presented different options, and then they sold to somebody else. Well, 27 of those went on market with a realtor. Okay, that's probably what they should have done, right? We weren't the right fit. What about all these others? And so I hope that this really expands your mind as to what's possible for us just in the last 90 days to see that. So what does that mean for here and now? Okay, actionable tips. I stole some of these slides from the Norris Group. Bruce Norris is a fantastic investor out of California, and he does a lot of high-level, he consolidates the data and presents it in a really, workable fashion for you to digest. I wasn't around in the 80s, okay, but that was the last time that we really saw interest rate adjustments quite like this, with this kind of rate of change. But what happened in the 80s was quite astonishing. It is nothing like right now. Foreclosures went up by 8x, new construction down by 50%, sales down by 50%, interest rates were at 14%. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? That's like almost credit card interest. 10% unemployment, but we had zero price damage. What? How? This is probably the most accurate predictor of what is going to happen in the future. And as it pertains to our market, it's called the moodometer. This is a measure of the mood of the participant. Basically, how willing is a buyer to enter into the space? Are they feeling really motivated to go and buy homes, or are they sitting on the sidelines saying, I'm gonna wait, I don't know about this. I don't know what's going on here. So what do you notice about this graph? 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, peak moodometer. Uh-oh, we all know what happened in 2008, 2009, right? So every time we have a peak in the moodometer, same thing, 2020, 2021, 2022, interest rates at super low right out of COVID, right? What's going to happen? Mood is going to decrease. We've seen that happen in history over time. So you're gonna have more reluctant buyers. And I'm gonna zip through these so we have time for questions, but this is what your buyer looks like. They're cautious. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to be fast. Every place I offer on, I'm gonna get some kind of seller concession. I'm probably gonna get below listing price. And this is the worst part. They can go on YouTube and they can fearmonger and latch themselves onto these clickbait headlines, right? Tariffs, price crashing, shadow inventory, whatever clickbait headline you wanna enter in here. People can latch onto that, and that is a way for them to not act. Likewise, sellers. Well, if you have first-time buyer inventory, you're at that median price point or below, you're probably going to get an offer in the first 45 to 60 days. You might have to offer some concessions. If you're in a higher price point, then your days on market is going to expand, sometimes exponentially depending on where you are. I've seen this specific chart and graphic circulating a lot, which is spreading a lot of fear for people because they're like, oh my gosh, 40% of Idaho's inventory are new builds. They have to be oversaturated. A crash is coming. That's like Texas. We all know the situation that's happening there. Florida too, right? Well, not so fast. What we're finding with our sellers, this is an inventory chart of Caldwell and a screenshot that I took yesterday of Caldwell. Caldwell, Star, Kuna, and Garden City right now are feeling the most amount of pain. When we meet with sellers, we see a lot of people that bought in the last 3 or 4 years right next to new builds. And if you did that, you can't compete because these builders are offering 20K concessions, 30K concessions, rate buy downs, et cetera, right? Inventory in Caldwell now is significantly higher or headed for a significantly higher pace than even in 2022. But it's not like that everywhere. It's just like that in these areas. So beware, if you're in these areas, not a lot of fun conversations happening. But as a whole, why is this not impacting prices? Well, compared to pre-COVID levels, 2019, inventory is only up 10% right now. So we're not out of balance. We still only have, I think last time I checked in Ada County, 2.7 months of inventory. That's nothing, right? So this is really, yes, real estate is local, but now it's hyper-local because these new build communities and where they're going up are having huge impacts on pricing. And then last couple slides here before we open it up to questions. Idaho is still the place to be. It was top dog in terms of domestic net migration during COVID, but what about after COVID? Are those trends going to continue? Well, Idaho's been number 2 out of all states in terms of population increase. Now, the nice thing that Idaho has going for it for us as investors, the population of California, Oregon, and Washington is 51.5 million people. Idaho's 2. It doesn't take that many people at all to cause a housing shortage here to move here. I mean, we're talking a couple percent of people move here. That moves the needle in a huge way, and then all of a sudden, we don't have enough inventory anymore. So for your long-term buy and hold investors, this is something you need to be paying attention to, because I know that there's pain right now. I know interest rates are high, but this trend is not going away. People are going to move from higher price states into lower price states, from blue states into red states that are more tax friendly. That trend is not going away anytime soon. That's why we're so bullish here. And so in closing, most people will never define their personal success because in doing so, they actually define personal failure. And once you've defined what actually matters to you, you can no longer hide behind all the vanity metrics. So things like, well, if I got that car, if I got that house, right? Who are you trying to please? Like, you're not serving yourself at all. You're caring about what other people think about you. You're not taking control of your life and what you want. And so this is my methodology that I'll leave you with on how you actually take this into action, because most people go through life and they don't actually define what it is they want. They design their life around their business or their job, and they don't do the opposite. You have to design your business or your investing to fit around your life. Is it going to be easy? No, but this is the framework. What do you truly want? Starts with defining what you actually want in life and going through the mental exercise of that. What would be your biggest regret if you found out you only had a short time left? That's a pretty hard question. That's going to take some time to go through. Do this exercise with your spouse, with your loved ones. It'll get you, I promise you, that clarity is your X factor. It'll give you that fuel to push through that crisis of meaning, that failure that we talked about before and all these setbacks. And then put that into an income goal and plan backwards. How many properties do you need to buy? Do you need to get a side hustle? How do you increase your active income? Then it just becomes a math equation and then a time horizon to get there. Great, that's all I got today. Questions? Yeah.
You said when you first started, you had to speak to 450 people before you got your first contract.
Yes.
Now with your team, what is those stats? Like how many people do you have to speak to get a contract?
So it varies by marketing channel. I don't know exactly how many people it takes to get for us to talk to because we have a lot of team members, but I do know it takes us 16 leads to get an appointment and then 10 appointments to get a signed contract. So that would be 160 leads roughly. We do have 27% of our appointments get canceled, so it's gonna be more than 160, but roughly 160 people that say, hey, I'm looking to sell a property to get a contract, which is a lot, right? It's a lot, yeah.
Following up on that, how many deals do you make on people that you choose not to call?
Meaning?
None, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's good to call them regardless. I mean, any percentage of conversion. Like if it's 1 in 450 still, that's still a win, I think.
Oh yeah, anything you can do to gamify it. Like for me, when I got the first one, and that's what's so cool about data, it's gamifying it. Like I was excited then, as quickly as I could get to 450, you're celebrating every no then. So I was keeping a tally of all my no's. Yes, another no, yes, another no. I knew that I was just one no closer every single time. And so you have to, gamify it for yourself because it really is a volume game, especially if you're doing outbound marketing. If you're doing inbound, you have a bigger marketing budget. You know, we're doing TV commercials now, online advertising, web forms, mail, whatever it is, to drive motivated people to you. It's gonna be less work, but it's gonna cost more money. Yeah.
So this number 16 is an average of all the marketing channels that you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
And out of the contracts that you did last year, how many of those deals you get as a buy and hold?
Very few, maybe 5. Really only the creative finance ones are worth holding or keeping. One of my big learning lessons in the beginning, especially when interest rates were so low and as a W-2 employee, you can qualify for conventional loans. So that was a huge catalyst for me to getting all those properties that quickly. The problem was I became equity rich and cash poor very quickly. And properties, yes, you have all this equity, but it's not working for you, right? Now I realize a good salesperson on our team can generate $1 million a year in revenue. Just one good salesperson. A property isn't gonna produce that, right? So I had this shift of, okay, I can't treat this business like a personal property conveyor belt. If I actually treat it like a business, everybody's gonna win. I'm gonna get better A players. I'm gonna get a lot more of my time back, and there's gonna be just a way more massive pie to go around. So, hope that makes sense, yeah. Yeah.
After this, what do you do with your deals? Did you say you're selling them, flipping them?
It's a mix, yeah. So we assign or wholesale properties. We'll flip, we do novations, we'll do creative finance, keep them as rentals. Yeah, kind of all the above. Say again?
Well, like what's the breakdown of that? Do you have a preferred path or is it just deal by deal?
It really is deal by deal. I'll say Q3 and Q4 every year, fall and winter, tend to be more rentals and more wholesales just because we're getting more creative finance deals. We're getting a lot of people that listed on the market, a lot of failed listings, and they're like, I need to get this number, and they just have a number set in their mind. So we get better long-term hold deals in Q3 and Q4, and then more of our cash deals come in Q1 and Q2 that tend to be either flips or wholesales or novations. Yeah, of course.
You kind of shared though, is there some sort of formula that you give in order to know how much you're going to offer the seller, or does that vary per deal?
Yeah, that varies so drastically, especially because of this here. I have never seen such a discrepancy. We used to use tax assessed value as a rough gauge of like if we're around 10% below tax assessed value, we know it's probably going to be a deal, okay? Of course, we gotta know the condition. and all those things. But in the past, tax assessed value was usually lagging like what the actual property was worth. The problem is you can't trust Zillow at all. Zillow is way off, especially with Idaho being a non-disclosure state. All that is private information. Now you could use that to your advantage. That keeps a lot of people out of the market actually, so that helps. Now, especially like in this area, I can't tell you how many properties we look up and the tax assessed value is like $100,000 over what it would actually sell today, which is insane. So now it's so like location dependent and neighborhood dependent, but as a really rough rule of thumb, that is kind of what we use starting out. Yeah. Yes.
Can we talk more about the Weimer Method, or is it too complicated?
It's not too complicated. I have a completely separate presentation that I can do on that to really dive deep into it. The one thing though is it does require properties with equity, because you're taking that seller's note and you're saying, hey, we're buying this property, but I'm now taking your note and putting it against one of my others. And so there has to be a lot of trust, transparency. You have to pull a title report so that they know there's equity in the property. You have to do it ethically. So there's a lot of factors at play there, but I can do a separate presentation on that because it has been a total game changer. And right, like this is what's so cool about failures that feel like setbacks. We have that skill now to do forever. You know, you have a failure, it affects you a lot of times, not for life, maybe a year, a couple of years or whatever, but now you develop a new skill, you innovate for the rest of your life.
So I think what's interesting, and just kind of reading the room and knowing, having had a chance to have a lot of conversations with many of you, and I know we vary so much in experience in this room, let alone this valley and our greater community. And you may be, I'm just speaking aloud, for somebody in here might think, oh my gosh, this is so far like beyond what I can think or imagine, and it may not hit Ryan's dream. Maybe your nightmare if you don't want to start a company and create a whole business out of something. So permission granted to have a raging success and take one little thing out of this to use some creative strategies to get that one property that's going to add $1 million to your rental, to your retirement account and nest egg, right? So don't walk out of here thinking, oh my gosh, if I'm going to be a real estate investor, I need to contact 400 sellers a day or whatever Ryan's team is doing. It's not about that. You know, I got to know Ryan several years ago when he was just starting to work with Corby, Goad, right?
Yep.
And taking that baby step, and he had just lost an engineering job, right?
Yep.
So you can take it as far as you want to, but don't discourage and say, I'm not going to go full bore and do all these things, and therefore I will watch Netflix. You gotta take some action, but make it your dream and not your goals.
Yeah, but I think it's important, right? Like, this speaks to all the opportunity there is out there, right?
Right.
So like 450 no's, you have to remember, I had no, like, the mere thought of cold calling somebody as an engineer, I was breaking out in a cold sweat and stuttering, right? So like, I had negative sales skills. I guarantee you'll do better than that if you want to do that, right, kind of thing. But that's the point, right, is whatever in that A to Z process, wherever you are, take action, because there's so much opportunity out there. I think we could do 1,000 deals a year here in Idaho before we were like, yeah, we're getting decreasing, ROAS on our marketing spend, and we really need to go somewhere else, which we're nowhere close, right? I mean, a fifth of our database is not even contacted.